Welcome to Super Woo Radio, where we are awakening into being free and sovereign. It's a place where minds hurt and hearts sing as we break through the barriers that have been holding us back. So be prepared to have belief systems confronted as we take the journey of the truth seeker and explore the answers to life's biggest questions. Remember, truth is stranger than fiction. So come along for an awareness-expanding experience with George and Jason.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome to Super Woo Radio, episode number 3. Jason, how are you, mate?
I'm fantastic, George. How's your good self?
Oh, feeling really, really good and feeling super excited because today we have got an incredible guest. We actually have our inaugural female guest today. For the first time on Super Woo Radio, we have got Kim Carsburg.
This is going to be a big one, George. It's very rare that we have an interviewer and an interviewee, both with so many experiences with off-world beings and abductions and even the parents of hybrid children. This is going to be one of the biggest ones, and I think it might be very emotional, folks. I would have the box of tissues very handy because this is going to go to places that I think is going to be nearly indescribable. It's going to be fantastic. So, yeah, I can't wait to bring Kim on. But before we start and we get too involved, George, let's talk about the book.
The book.
Our Universal Journey.
And it's doing so well. Oh, we are very pleased. We haven't even officially launched it yet. And the book is getting rave reviews from so many people. And it's interesting the impact it's having on people too. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was just going to interject and tell everybody it's number 1 on Smashwords, which is the largest independent ebook store on the internet. This is not with Amazon and Kindle. This is an independent store, and you've been the bestseller there for a few weeks. How does that make you feel?
Astounded, really. We are very, very pleased that there's that many people taking so much interest in that kind of information, and it is very empowering information. And I'm going to go as far as saying that we've had emails from people who, who are willing to take their lives, who had plans to take their lives, to leave this reality. Even one gentleman, he planned to blow his head off with a shotgun. And, we received an email from him. Cynthia and I were driving down to Adelaide and we read this email from this gentleman who came across our information, and now he has a new zest for life, and he wants to be here, and it's totally empowered him and turned his life around. And Cynthia's just in tears, sobbing with tears as we're driving along, and she's reading this to me, and I'm welling up, and I've got tears running down my cheeks. And crikey, when you get information like that, when you hear people like that, and that's not the only one. We've had quite a few, to be honest, and it's just one example. And we must be doing something right. We really must. And this information is empowering for people, and it does empower them from within, and it brings back, the understanding of the value and the worth in our lives here. What it really means to be here, and how important it is, and how powerful we truly are. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's fantastic. Yeah, I've read a few on Facebook. It's just streaming in, and yeah, it's wonderful to see.
So our official launch date, Joe?
Well, the books have arrived. They've finally made it all the way to the US and being cleared through customs and off to the Amazon warehouse. So we have decided to launch it on your favourite date, an equinox, the September equinox, which I believe falls on the 22nd of the month.
Well, I think it's absolutely amazing because we did not plan it that way. It just all synchronized and everything just fell into place.
George, we're going to borrow a few ideas from the internet marketing gurus, and we're going to offer some free gifts for those who purchase the book on the 22nd of September through Amazon. Once they purchase the book, they just email us the receipt, and once we get it, we'll send them a link for the free audio book. Imagine that. George speaking, backed up by Medward's incredible music. For those who don't know Medward Goodall is a musician of high regard in the, I suppose, New Age spiritual genre. I think he's sold 4 or 5 million albums, and he's come together with his friend to put the backing behind the audio book. It's going to be an incredible product, and we're going to give it away free for those who purchase the paperback on the 22nd of September. We'll put some more details on the website. The website for the book is ouruniversaljourney.com.au. That's ouruniversaljourney.com.au.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? I just absolutely had an incredible experience narrating that book and providing that audio book with the purchases on that day. I think is a fantastic idea. It's a great gift, and it really, really, it backs it up to have, you can have the book you can hold in your hand and you can read it at night, snuggled in bed or sitting in front of the fire or however it is you like to read, sitting on the veranda, swinging in a hammock off the veranda while a summer breeze blows past. It all depends how people do that sort of thing. But then if you're driving in traffic or you're sitting on a train, you got your iPod thing happening, you can also listen to the audio book and have a different experience of listening to that information and understanding the information. And yeah, I think it's a great medium.
I like the audio book much better than reading. I really can't read books. Yours is one of the very few I've actually read, George, but I can't wait to hear the finished product with Medwin's music and your voice combined. I think it's going to be very powerful and very moving. So I can't wait.
Well, I've heard the samples already, and I can tell you Cynthia and I were all goosebumps from head to toe when we were listening to them. So, yeah, it's going to be quite the treat.
So do you think you'll be finished the audio book by the time the paperback is released on Amazon on the 22nd of September?
Very close. It'll be very close. I'm feeling confident that it can happen, but we'll just have to keep an open mind to time constraints, because sometimes things do happen, and little factors are involved in production, as you're well aware. Mm-hmm. So if it's not going to be on the day, it's going to be very soon after.
And it won't be a problem for those who purchase the book, because we'll have the email address and we'll forward it to you as soon as it's available. And you'll actually be the very first to get the audio book as well.
Exactly.
So buy the book, buy it for a friend, and get the audio books as well. It's going to be a great product and helping a lot of people, really helping a lot of people. Well, I think it's time to invite our guest in.
Oh, I'm very, very excited about this. I've been stirring energetically for the last few days, quite intensely. I first came across Kim's material when she was being interviewed on Veritas, and to listen to somebody, I spent half the time in emotional tears just about, because I understand from having been there myself what it's like, and so to listen to somebody else voice it and articulate it in the way that Kim has and does, I know she's the real deal, because I've been there, and it's quite easy to tell when someone's genuine about this sort of subject matter, because the energy comes through, and it's the energy that tells the story. And so, without any further ado, I would like to welcome our inaugural female guest to Super Wee Radio, Kim Carsburg.
I'm here, George, and very happy to be here. Very excited.
Wow, we are so deeply honoured to have you on the show, Kim. It's the respect that Jason and I both have for you is incredible. It really is immense. We have listened to a fair bit of your interviews, and we do understand, your journey. And we are just so honoured to have somebody who's genuine, authentic, and I can say from my own personal experiences, I know you are somebody who has personally lived these experiences.
And I was not familiar with your work. I was familiar with your name. And I was telling my best friend the other day that I was going to do your interview, and she has followed you and very, very one of your biggest fans. So that got me excited. And then I had a few minutes to go on Veritas last night and listen to some of your interviews. And we definitely have parallel experiences. What I'm most excited about is the fact that you and I have had phenomenal spiritual experiences with the ETs and very frightening, terrifying, and painful experiences. So, there seems to be this overall idea in the world that things are black and white, good or bad. And, my experience with talking to people who've had contact, it's either all good or all bad. You're either a high spiritual being or part of the cabal. So, but you and I know that it's all and everything. And that's really refreshing for me to hear from someone who's had my kinds of encounters.
Oh, wow. It's so good to hear you say that. Yeah, same here. It has been usually people say, because I feel that their contact is with a very either one race of beings or it's with a very limited group of beings. And right. I feel that your experiences and my experiences, and I'm sure there's many others on the planet, we've had quite a wide variety of experiences with many different races from many different vibrational paradigms and realities. And, there's this old saying, famous saying, which is as above, so below. And it is so true. Right. The cosmic arena is as it is on Earth because Earth is a fractal of the cosmic arena. So the right. two are going to be running in parallel. So before we get really deep into the juicy stuff, I want to first just say I was looking on your website the other day, and you must be doing something right because they're starting to hack your links on your website. And yeah, and I pressed a few of your links and they took me to some strange places. So you might want to have a look into that. I thought I'd make you aware of that.
Oh, thank you very much.
And also, we'd like to share with the community that you're actually doing UFO tours as well, aren't you?
Every night. I'm here in Sedona. I don't know. Have you ever been to Sedona? I haven't
myself.
Okay. Well, Sedona is, I think it's the heart chakra of the world, actually. Uh-huh. It has this wonderful womb energy. We're known for the powerful vortices here, and it's very woo-woo. I mean, people come here knowing that there are energies that can be utilized, and the veils are very thin here. The dimensional veils, you can stick your fingers through them. So people come here and they do healing retreats and they do spiritual retreats, and it is infamous and famous for UFO sightings. So when I found myself at the bottom of the American real estate crash a couple years ago, I ended up here, and I'm actually thankful. I have to say I'm thankful that I lost 3 properties and $1 million because I'm actually doing what I need to be doing and what I'm here to do. And that's share this information in any way possible. And I get to take people out, and every night we see UFOs. Typically we'll see 25 to 50. I've never seen less than 5. We've seen up to 200 at once. And I get to share my story and stories with people under the stars, and they take it away with them, and their lives are changed. So it's very, very exciting.
Wow, what an amazing experience that would be. So really, if anybody who's listening and wants to get a bit of a feel for this subject matter, and maybe you're a bit of a skeptic, or maybe it's something you've been really wanting to experience throughout your whole life. I mean, you know, it's one thing to hold this on an intellectual level. It's another thing to actually experience it. When you do experience it, it is life-changing. Even if you do just see the dot in the sky do a bit of a zigzag, the moment you see that, it's a different thing from doing the research, looking at videos, looking, you know, when you're actually there. And even if you see that dot in the sky take that zigzag or that curved motion, it changes your life. It really does, because it transfers it from the intellectual into the being. That knowledge, then, you know, you start being that knowledge rather than just thinking about it all the time and holding it as an intellectual concept. So I urge anybody to get in touch with Kim and have that experience. You know, make the effort, go there if you live in the US, and have that experience. It's definitely worth it.
It is. On my website, Sedona UFO SkyTours.com, I have a video interview with a gentleman who came here about a year ago, and he is a retired police officer from the East Coast. I believe it's New Jersey. A very, very kind, sweet, open-minded man who, you know, spent his life in a very rigid, you know, environment, and he was always a believer. Always wanted to see a craft, and fortunately for him, the night that we were out, he saw 100 craft.
Wow.
And he was so grateful. It was the biggest thing in his life. He was in tears. I mean, this interview is so touching for a man to be teased his whole life about being open-minded in a group of, you know, working in a police force, and then come here and be able to you know, have his dream come true in such a huge way. And it's really, you know, you and I take it for granted that, you know, our lives have been so extreme, and we've seen so much. And I'm not going to say I'm jaded, but, you know, I've seen thousands of craft, and, you know, dozens of ETs, and, you know, people will come and they will say, you know, have you actually ever seen an alien? And, you know, I kind of chuckle because it's so foreign to them. And it was just my life. It's just a matter of fact. And there's still a lot of people out there that have never seen a UFO or an ET, and we have to change that. Yeah, we do need to, you know, well, we're doing it. It's important, I feel, and obviously you feel, and even Jason feels, that we do play a role in helping humanity to once again snap out of this epoch of amnesia that we're in. It is time for us to wake up, and, you know, thankfully the greater processes that are at hand here are helping to facilitate that. The energies are here for us to do that now. And I know Jason has a couple of things he wants to ask you, so I'm just going to hand it over to Jason just for a little bit. And then you and I, Kim, we're going to really start getting into some really juicy stuff. So take it away, Jay.
Thanks, George, and welcome to the show, Kim. It is really a great honour and privilege to have you on our Super Woo Radio, especially as the first guest, female guest. It's just wonderful. And when I was feeling into this show, the title just came straight to me, and the title will be Kim Carsburg, Stand Up for Your Truth. There is no one I have ever listened to on radio, and I haven't met you personally, and maybe one day, who really is a living, breathing example of leading an authentic life. I know a little. You're welcome. I really mean that, and you've taken the hard road, and we'll get into that a little bit as we move forward. You left behind the lifestyle of the rich and famous for the truth.
I did.
And that's brave. That really is brave. And I dip my hat to you and to all others who do the same, because I know how difficult it is to be authentic, to be sovereign, and to be free. And that's what this show is all about. And it really is a privilege to have you on to talk about all things off-world. But before we go, I think it's important for the audience to understand a little bit about your background. Everybody knows George well on this program, but some may have not heard of you or understand the journey you've been on.
Certainly.
Can we go back to the beginning? You were raised in the Midwest Bible Belt, is that right?
That's correct. In the heart of America, we call it Kansas City. And I had a typical Midwest upbringing. I went to church barefoot sometimes on Sundays and Bible school. And, it was very ordinary. And yet, once I realized I had been being contacted, I can look back on it and see the extraordinary aspects that I wasn't aware of when I was a kid. So I actually did a couple of regressions with Yvonne Smith, trying to, look at some particular events that happened in a couple of my abductions. And it turned out that my subconscious brought up these memories of things that happened to me when I was a child that I didn't consciously remember. So I had contact probably from birth, maybe before, but it didn't come to my conscious recall until I was in my late 20s. So I won a scholarship to the Art Institute in Kansas City, and I wanted to see a bigger world. So I actually did not take that scholarship. I wanted to find, bigger pastures. So I made my way to Los Angeles. And it's funny, you say I'm the first woman on your show. I was actually the first woman in the Cameraman's Union. I was the only woman in most of my classes in Art Center. There was one other woman that had a couple of classes with me. So, I've always, maybe because I had brothers and no sisters, I kind of go into areas where most women don't go. And so I got a great education at the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. And I went on, like I said, to be the first woman in the Cameraman's Union. While I was dating or living with my boyfriend of 5 years, we decided one day to put together a synopsis for a television series that he wanted to create because he worked his way through college being a lifeguard. So one 4th of July weekend, we took a bunch of our friends, camera people, to the beach, and we photographed a rock video of Santa Monica Beach on the 4th of July. And there are literally millions of people on the beach, and the lifeguard trucks can't even drive. So there was so much activity. It was just a perfect day, and we put together this video and we submitted it to Grant Tinker, who did the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and they accepted the video as the television series that became Baywatch. Wow. I know a lot of you are probably hearing this can't remember Baywatch, but it was the most successful television series in history. So I was definitely living the life of Riley. I was living on the beach in Malibu in a beautiful stone castle with beautiful windows that overlooked the Santa Monica Bay. I was at the top of my game. I was in a wonderful relationship. And then one night I came home and all that changed. I saw something hovering over the ocean, and it was just this bright light, and it was out of place. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a boat. So I stared at it for a while, and the next thing I know, it jetted across the ocean in a heartbeat about 40, 50 miles across the Santa Monica Bay, and it got my attention. My boyfriend was asleep behind me, and I knew that the way this thing moved, that if I tried to get him awake and get him to the window, it would be gone. So I just sat there staring at this, what turned out to be a craft, for a couple minutes. And the next thing I know, as if it responded to my giving it attention, it shot across the ocean once again and landed about 20 feet in front of my window. It didn't land, it actually hovered. And it was a huge white light. It was about 50 feet in diameter, and it was glowing, and it had an aura around it, as if you view the moon through fog. And I noticed the silhouette of two beings on the inside. And at that time, I had never heard of alien abduction, aliens, anything, because I had actually worked my way through, 8 years of college. I didn't go to movies and I didn't watch television, and I just worked. And so at that time, I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was paranormal, and I didn't know about missing time, so I don't know if I had missing time. But a couple seconds later, it just shot into the stars and disappeared.
Wow.
So a couple weeks later, I came home.
Kim, I just want to interrupt a little bit, because before we go off-world, because once we start, you and George may be the most experienced abductee contactees on the planet. I don't know everybody, but I know you're two of the most popular. And this is going to go to places that it's going to be incredible. It really is going to be incredible stories. Most people are going to think, this is crazy. This is just totally crazy. So before we actually get into the experiences and the stories, and I don't want to block your flow, I just want to talk a little bit about one of George's favourite little bugbears, and that's the skeptics. Because there's been a program by the official government and society at large about denial, about UFOs, about abductions, about all the experiences that you, George, and many of us listening to this show have had.
What? A cover-up? Our government? Oh, please.
I know it's a joke to you guys, but it's real, and it's really effective, because
it is.
If you ask somebody about are they alone on the planet, 80, 90, maybe even 95% will say, of course not. There's in the universe, not the planet. Sorry about that. But if you start talking about UFOs, I think you're crazy. That's what I can't compute. Like, the program to stop this information is so strong that even though people recognize the universe is so grand and there must be life beyond this planet, they still won't talk about UFOs.
There are systems of mind control that are so powerful here, from the media, from other sources, from the Black Ops, from, it's such a successful cover-up that, I guess they should be proud because they've done a great job. The ridicule that comes with speaking up is enough to stop 99% of the people from speaking out. And they knew that, back in, 1947? Let's put this lid on now, and anyone who speaks about it will be considered insane. And that was the official denial program. And it has worked beautifully. But nowadays with the internet, and because people like, George and I have spoken up, and of course the whole UFO community and the great work that they do to try to share this information, things are changing. In 1988, when I had my first experience, there were 2 books on the market, and it was Missing Time by Bud Hopkins and Communion by Whitley Strieber. That was it. That was my research material. But now, thanks to the internet, shows like this, of course, people are waking up. I have 5,000 friends on my Facebook page, and they're all believers. So, the statistics nowadays are much, much higher in a very short time. So if we've come to the point where 50% of the people on the planet believe in ETs now, that's a huge stride. And, it's exponential information. So the more we go forward, the quicker this is going to expand. And, I thought I was retired. Ha ha. My work has begun again.
And it has in grandeur. George, do you want to make a comment on the mind control programs and the dumbing down of society?
Yeah, I get quite passionate about that subject, and I just did an interview with Mel, and I got quite passionate in that moment. And I just say, look, I'm just over the idiotic nonsense. Anybody with any rationality, any sensibility at all, any intuition at all, any intellect at all, the moment you look up the night sky, that's self-explanatory. End of story. Period. There is no argument. The moment you see and contemplate the cosmos, that's your answers right there. And for anybody to continue to want to believe that we are alone, then they are simply and merely entertaining a brainwashed and a deluded and insane state of mind. And I've just turned the whole thing around. And if anybody wants to call me crazy for thinking that aliens have been visiting this planet, then I'm going to call, I'm just calling them deluded and insane for thinking that we haven't. And
absolutely.
I've just turned the whole thing around and put it straight back onto everybody else, because it's a lie and it's a false, mental program that these people are continuing to impose. And it's no different to wanting to continue to argue to say that the world is flat.
Right. I can't think of the woman's name right now, but she does a lot of speaking and programs, and she says that we actually have two distinctly different species on this planet. Of course, there's probably dozens of different species here, but her point is that just like when Homo sapien and human were on the planet at the same time, there is human now and Homo noeticus, the sixth sensory being. And she states that, maybe because of DNA, the human that has not been manipulated or enlightened can't actually grasp these concepts. And maybe that's why they're creating all of these new species, so that through their DNA they can absorb this knowledge where we haven't been able to up till now.
What a fascinating concept. That's something I would really like to look into more after, or you can give it to us now. What was the name of this person?
I can't think of her name.
That's all right.
I will get that information back with you. I have some of her CDs. They're probably right behind me. And but because I'm wired to the computer.
No dramas at all. I blank out too. I get all these blanks. It's because we've had our memories screened so often from our experiences. Do you find that?
Carolyn Mays, MYSS. So Google her, and she did a wonderful weekend program on a CD called Anatomy of the Spirit.
Okay.
And everyone should hear that.
Kim, I'd like to take you back to the Malibu.
Just before we go there, I'd just like to say a comment. You grew up in the Midwest, in Kansas, and you're running around with your little dress on and barefoot, and you had experiences without realizing it. I'm just going to say, we've just got to call you Dorothy, and Kansas went by that, didn't it?
Yes, you can call me Dorothy. Right. And I've seen a lot of tornadoes up close and personal. My older brother used to throw me in the back seat of our car and drive down I-70 freeway chasing tornadoes.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was, yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. I'm as excited and probably a little bit out of my depth when it comes to this show. So I'm going to hand a little bit. I have not had the experiences that you and Kim have, and I think the audience needs to really appreciate that. I think it's pretty rare to have an interviewer and the interviewee having the same set of experiences or similar experiences and so many contacts. I know George has had hundreds, if not probably thousands of contacts and lots and lots of abductions, continuing up to today. Not so much the abductions, but the interference. And Kim has had similar rounds of experience for a long time.
Absolutely.
We're over 70 conscious recall experiences. That's amazing.
And that's
that was just in my first book. I actually had enough information for a second book. And one day I woke up and I said, I can't take this anymore. I have to try to live a normal life. And I threw everything in the trash. Diary entries for another book. And I know that I became conscious when I was in my late 20s. So if I had 8 years in my first book, Beyond My Wildest Dreams, 8 years of diary entries, 2 or 3 times a week sometimes, that's significant. And if it was happening since birth, it would be in the thousands. So it's crazy.
And the important thing to note is you both have recall, not just through regression that you've done, Kim, but you actually have conscious recall of these experiences. And I think most who have been abducted have their memories wiped and really don't understand what's gone on. And I think that's the unique part of this show. And I'm really going to hand the floor over to yourself and George to have a conversation about all your experiences. I'll come in where necessary, but I'd like to hand it over. And I'd like to start with your quote. It's my favourite quote. I didn't get into aliens. Aliens got into me.
Absolutely. That's right.
It's so good.
Let's go back to Malibu. I think it's 1988 and you're in your 20s, and go back to the ship that came over the ocean and tell us what happened next.
I will, but I just have to tell you something. Synchronicity. My favorite UFO woman in the world is Mary Rodwell, and her name just came on the screen. She just came online.
I've met with Mary. We sat down and had an incredible conversation, and I tell you what, that woman. They talk about courage. I mean, yes. Yeah, it's people like yourself and Mary and Carla Turner and Shirley MacLaine, and I've drawn so much inspiration from so many people. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the beginning on the beach in Malibu. The moon over Malibu. I nicknamed it the moon over Malibu, and I went on with my life for the next couple weeks. I was so busy, it didn't come into my consciousness much, but 2 weeks later, it did come into my consciousness. It would never leave. I was working on a movie, I believe, and I came home late. My boyfriend was already asleep. I got into bed, and Greg slept on his side, and he was curled up in sort of a fetal position on his side, how I always went to sleep, and I slid in the bed beside him, and I fell asleep, and a few hours later, I woke up, and I was not in my bed. I was standing with perfect consciousness, naked and paralyzed in what I thought was an elevator, because there was a metal silver door in front of me. My nose was pressing against this door. And next to me were two other people. The person to my direct left was my first boyfriend. His name was David. He was a photographer as well. And David was naked and paralyzed, but he was completely unconscious. His eyes were open, but he wasn't there. Next to him was another female. I could not see her physically, but I knew she was there, and I knew she was a makeup artist. I was getting my first communication telepathically. So a couple minutes later, this elevator door opened from the middle, and I was pushed from behind into a room that was so large I couldn't see the edges of the room. And this room was filled with hundreds of short tables that were about 2 feet high. Every one of these tables was occupied with an unconscious human being. Every one of these human beings were being worked on by what I don't know if you have this in Australia, but what I coined, our consciousness will try to grasp onto anything it understands. And since I had seen a gray, I looked and I said, they look like anorexic Pillsbury Doughboys.
What's a Pillsbury Doughboy?
See, you don't have that in Australia, but it's a commercial that's been around my entire lifetime here. Pillsbury is a company who makes a bakery, dough, that kind of stuff. And their little icon is this little guy who jumps around, and he looks like he's not wearing any clothes, but he doesn't have any genitalia. He's just a little puppet guy who's off-white, and he's got a big head and big black eyes.
Wow.
So I said, okay, anorexic Pillsbury Doughboys working on human beings that are unconscious, strapped to tables. And I thought these people were probably dead, and I thought that I was probably going to be dead soon as well. And I just did what any, intelligent woman would do. I started screaming at the top of my lungs. And as I did, I saw a motion to the right of the door, and there were 4 beings standing there. And Now I know millions of people have seen light beams. I didn't know what a light beam was, but it was an energetic, I called it a waterfall of energy, about 9 feet tall. And this energy just kept vacillating, and it looked to me like, you've seen Star Trek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know when they get in the transporter, that how the beam comes down and they kind of phase in and phase out?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what it looked like. So, and I knew that these beings were conscious, and they were more observers. Beside these 2 light beams were 2 taller, what we now know are the tall grays. Actually, the small ones were off-white. They were not gray. The taller ones were more gray. They were wearing uniforms. They had, a form-fitting bodysuit. One walked up to my face and stared in my eyes, and the other one walked up and hit me on the back of the neck, and I felt myself going under. And it was the feeling of anesthesia, and I realized that, within a few minutes, I was going to be unconscious, and there was nothing I could do about it. And it was probably the most terrifying moment of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am absolutely amazed that you talked about the light beings, because I've made a concerted effort to tell people that, if they think that it's just a bunch of aliens that are running the show, they're quite mistaken. It is a cosmic empire, and the beings at the very top are light beings, and they're capable of a whole lot, and much more than people realise. So it was really, really wonderful to hear you talk about those light beings.
Yeah, I was back in the day. When your consciousness is ripped wide open, you become open to everything. And my consciousness was just, it just exploded after my experiences. And I was all of a sudden, channeling and healing and going out of body and teleporting and meeting with all kinds of sentient beings. I had an amazing experience with a shapeshifter that had nothing to do with an abduction. So, when you're open, when you get open and you see the light of the universe, it is every molecule is a life form. I mean, there are beings in and out and around us all the time that we can't see. I know right now in this room, I'm surrounded by a lot of interested consciousnesses. So, and that's the reason I love Sedona so much, because you can actually contact, the other realms so easily here. The average person can do that. So, somebody who's been opened up, it's very, very entertaining. But it's a big, busy universe, multiverse.
It is. It sure is. I've often said how we all have an entourage of beings around us constantly at any given moment. There is no such thing as privacy, and that includes your thoughts. And people need to realise that if we are to reconnect with that greater aspect of self and reconnect into the higher realms of the universe, everything is transparent. We're completely transparent, and the notion of wanting to be, hide away your thoughts and feel that they are contained in this private little nook and nobody else gets access to them, well, that's a fear-based concept, and people need to realise that, when you are connected to everything, you are everything, and everything's connected to you, and you're completely transparent.
I know. I had one of these experiences. I used to meditate every night, and I would go out of body, and I'd find myself in these different realms. And one of the realms, this experience was just incredibly visceral. I mean, physically real. I found myself lost in another place and time, and I even Planet Holt. It had a name, Planet Holt, and there was a being that found me and knew that I was lost. And okay, it's one thing to get lost on planet Earth, but when you get lost in other dimensions and other planets, you're really lost. So this being had like this motorcycle that he put me on and took me to what was similar to one of our police stations. and he was going to help me find my way back. And while I was in this police station, there was a group of female beings from this planet. And there were about a half a dozen of them. And they were on one side of the room. And I was completely exposed telepathically there. And they curled up in a group, and they were cuddling each other and holding onto each other and backing away from me. And as if I was poison. And I looked at them and I said, "What's wrong with you?" And they said, "You lied about something." Like I had lied about something like the week before. And it was and they were so put off by the fact that I had intentionally lied about something, they just couldn't be in the same room with me. And I turned around and put my hands on my hips and I said, "You are not being fair." I said, "I am one of the most honest people on my planet, but you don't know what it's like to have to live on planet Earth where everybody lies all the time and try to be perfect." I said, "I'm one of the best ones where I come from." And they looked at each other and they, kind of looked a little funny and they kind of relaxed. And so, and I write about it in my first book, of course. The only way we're going to get anywhere is through telepathy. And you can't have telepathy unless you're honest, because everything is exposed. You're right. And that's one of our biggest transformations, going from, this slow way of communicating, through words and to instant knowing. Now, I've had different types of telepathic communications. I've had what I get with the Greys typically is they will say something to me and it comes through my mind as words in English. I've had experiences where with other beings where it reminds me of an old book out of the 70s here. They called it Throwing a Rote. Oh, I remember what it was. It was Robert Monroe. Do you know Robert Monroe? He wrote Journeys Out of the Body.
Is he the one that started the Monroe Institute?
Monroe Institute. And his experiences when he was out of body, he said that when you meet up with another being and you want to exchange information, you throw them a rote. So you throw them a ball of your consciousness and it's instant. There are no words. It's not like telepathy. It's just instant knowing. And I've had that kind of telepathic communication.
Yeah, I call it, it's like a communicating through consciousness. It's like you connect to the soul of the other being. And instead of telepathy, you communicate with your hearts. It's heart-to-heart communication. And it's instant. And what's amazing is you end up actually feeling the other being and knowing the other being and knowing where they've come from and who they are and where they're headed in life. And it depends on the depth of communication that's necessary in that moment. And sometimes you can feel into their peoples, their civilization, you can feel into their race, into their planetary reality. It all depends, sure. right up to their galactic reality and even their universal paradigm. And it's just, it's a different form of communication to telepathy. And I feel that that's where we're headed as a race. We're going to go beyond telepathy and into this heart consciousness connection, which is really organic and it's all the way through. It's universal in scale. Right.
That's the one true language, love.
Yeah.
So that's easy enough.
Yeah.
But we make it so complicated.
We do, don't we? Yeah. Oh, the egoic mind. It's just got to have those programs.
Right.
Yeah. You've created an incredible book. Jason and I both have a copy. Very proud to say that we have copies of this book called The Art of Close Encounters. I can't recommend this highly enough to people. It has triggered some memories for me as well, because I've met quite a few different races. Some races in here I have not met consciously. Whether I have or not, I'm not sure. Some I probably haven't in this life. There's one particular image that really touched me deeply, and it's on page 257, and it's called The Is. And I have this strong sort of Syrian connection because the majority of the makeup of my life here because I've got aspects of me in different planetary star nations out there. I've got an aspect of me in the Pleiades, an aspect of me in Sirius, and an aspect of me in Orion, and a few other places. Like a majority of the people here have that makeup as well. It's not just me.
Sure.
And for me, that's got a very strong Syrian energy to it, with a touch of Orion thrown in there. So I just thought I'd share how I experienced that image. And can you share any more of that image?
You know, Corey Wolf is an extremely talented artist and an extremely enlightened and wonderful, loving man. He's worked for Walt Disney. I mean, he's had an amazing career, and he actually has several images in the book. He's probably one of the most inspirational artists in the book because he has had many, many encounters. It's been a while since I've looked at this image, to tell you the truth. But what I do know about his images is they do come from his personal experience, and they are profound. And the stories is where let's see if I can find this in the book. He actually meets up with God. And let's see, where are you, Corey? I'll be looking for it. But
page 257. Oh, you're looking for a different image, are you?
Yeah, I'm actually looking for the one where he does meet up with God. And it turns out that his interaction with God was going along beautifully. And then he had just an inkling of fear. And when that inkling of fear came up, he was back in his body and the experience was over. So his message is that we have to give up the fear or we're never going to meet God. And it's so true, but this earth is so fear-based. What a challenge. And I have to say, George, you said something last night in the interview when I was, it wasn't your last interview. I didn't get to that one. You said something that I think is just so fundamental. I want to just put it out there right away. We're here amongst all this quote-unquote negativity. And my best friend channels professionally, and I heard your comments about channeling and that kind of thing. But I've had a wonderful experience being a channel myself and, contacting other entities. And Bashar says that nothing has a negative or positive spin unless you give it yourself. So if you judge something to be good or bad, it's going to be so. And, we're here in this very controversial subject, surrounded by conspiracy, surrounded by negativity. I have to tell you, dealing with the chemtrails in my business has been quite eye-opening. And, we've started a new organization here in Sedona Skywatch, and we're trying to, educate other people about what's going on. And it can get very, very negative. But like you said, George, we would be nothing without these experiences. We have to have the yin and the yang to grow, to be creative, to expand. That's what God is. That's what creativity is. You have to have all of it to keep going. I had another experience one time. I meditated. I found myself out of my body. I was living on the beach in California, and I was standing on my beach. All of a sudden, I'm standing on my beach, and I look to the north, and there's another woman standing next to me. And we had this telepathic communication from somewhere that we had to swim across the ocean. And we looked at each other and kind of nodded, and we both dove into the water. We swam and swam and swam until we swam all the way around the earth, and we came out on the same shore from the other direction. So I came out of the water and I stepped onto my beach once again. But it was a little different. There was a man standing in a black suit, a tux, and he had a white towel hanging over his left arm. And there was a little cabana behind him. So it looked very Club Med-ish. And he handed me the towel to dry off. And he said, "You made it." And I said, "Yeah, I made it." And I'm looking around, and I noticed that I can see all the way up the coast of California to the north and all the way down the coast of California to the south. And it was concave, so I could see everything along the coast. The coast was perfect. There were houses, beautiful architecture, all blended with nature. There was no disharmony whatsoever. And he looked at me again. He said, "So what do you notice?" And I said, "I notice everything is perfect." And he said, "That's right. Everything is perfect." And I stood there for a few minutes drying on. And then he came to me, looked me in the eyes again. He goes, "What else do you notice?" And it brought me to tears. I said, "There's nothing to do here." He said, "That's absolutely right." I want to go home. And the next minute I was back in my body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing when I feel back into an aspect of myself that's had one of these, I call them holidays, cosmic holidays, where you go into these realities where everything is passive and everything's lovey-dovey and, peaches and fairies and rainbows and fairy blossoms. And honestly, it's nice for a relaxing holiday, but after a while you become really stagnant as a being because there is no challenges. There's nothing to do, like you said.
Right.
So you need the contrast, and that's what this universe is. It's a universe of contrasting expressions, and that's what is the alchemy to life in this universe. It's an amazing place if people can just realize the beauty. I just want to say, when in my comments to channeling, I do have I would say, a very cautious approach to channeling. I love Bashar. I reckon he's an absolute scream. And I've said that in interviews I've said that on many occasions. I might not agree with everything that Bashar shares and expresses, but then, who's going to be crazy enough to agree with 100% of what I say? It's just not reality. So my concern about channeling is that there are a lot of entities out there that are utilizing channeling to manipulate people and manipulate humanity. So that's my concern, because we did say before, as above, so below. And am I putting a negative spin on it? Of course I am, but there are I'd say there is only a few channelers that for me feel genuine and authentic. And because of the circumstances and the challenges right at the end of the cycle, I just feel it's important for people to just be very cautious when it comes to that subject matter. And you can feel with your heart. If you discern with your heart, you'll get to know which ones are genuine and which ones have a different kind of flavour of energy behind them.
Right.
Yeah. And I love Bashar. I reckon he's an absolute scream. Yeah, he's one of the best ever I've ever heard ever. It's great.
Right. Well, I know. As far as I'm concerned about channeling is just like telepathy. It's just another way to communicate with other beings. And if you are who you are, it's, like attracts like. And I am so confident and comfortable with who I am on a vibrational level that I have no fear that I'm ever going to have contact with anything that's going to be negative. All of my communications are always fun and loving and informative, and I know Bashar to be an absolute entity in his own right, away from Daryl, and he has literally saved my life a couple of times.
I was going to ask you about that, because I've got that in my little notes here, how you have that quote where you said they don't get to win anymore. That was a pretty serious turning point in your life, and I had that turning point as well. You get to that point, and then straight after that in my notes I've got Bashar helped you, and I really wanted to ask you about that, how that occurred.
Yeah.
George, could we go back maybe? Just sorry to interrupt, but I'd actually like the listeners to hear about the experience and why she needed help from Bashir. I think it would just flow a lot better.
From Bashir, I do want to get into that, because I also wanted to ask about your military abduction. So there is a bit of heavy stuff I did want to get through, Kim, if that's all right with you, because I've had, the difference in energy between the different experiences, and when you get taken into these underground bases, which I have as well, and military installations, and you've got to deal with those doctors who are, treating us as guinea pigs, really. That was really, really awful and really hard to deal with. So for me, I have a lot of pain in that area, and so that's probably a subject matter that I wanted to explore with you today as well, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. And I really would like to get back to the whole Bashar thing in my life because it's very, very significant. But the reason I had to have help was when I discovered that I was being taken, and I thought I was insane. Of course, you think you're insane, and I knew that these weren't dreams, although they had dreamlike quality when they first started. And I named my book "Beyond My Wildest Dreams" because there's so many. I've worked with so many, thousands of contactees, and they'll come to me and they'll say, "Well, I don't think I've had contact, but I had this dream." I've heard that 1,000 times, and our consciousness was created from Gaia. We are part of the earth. We're part of this 3D reality.
Yeah.
We weren't meant to be in other dimensions naturally. So when we go there, our consciousness can't comprehend it. But like anything, after a while, you do something enough, you adapt.
Yeah.
So what happened for me is my consciousness eventually adapted. And I was telling myself, I didn't know this at the time, but I was telling myself every time I was in an abduction that I would remember it the next day. I was using self-hypnosis. And every time they started to bring me back, I would say, the minute I wake up in the morning and I feel the cold floor on my feet, I will remember what happened. And eventually that worked as well. So those two things together made it possible for me to become conscious during my experiences. So, but it took years. And in the beginning, I thought, there may be a way to make this stop. I certainly didn't know how then. It did take me 8 years, but I didn't want the experiences to stop, as devastating as they were, because this was the most profound thing going on the planet. And I wanted to know everything I could know about it. I mean, I just couldn't imagine that my life could be turned completely upside down by, invisible beings that come in the middle of the night that nobody else. So I let the experiences continue, and I documented every one. And my book is a compilation of my diary entries. And so after many, many years, I realized exactly what they were doing, and I had had enough, because what they were doing is they were actually destroying my physical body, my female organs, because I was being used to create hybrid children. And I have many hybrid children, and when I decided that I had to make the abduction stop because my female problems were so severe, I knew that I would have to give up my relationship with my hybrid children, and that killed me. That broke my heart, but I had no choice.
Wow.
So one night I had a horrific experience, an abduction. And the next night I had a horrific military abduction. And I called my friend Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar. And I said, Daryl, I never ask your help. You don't ask friends help when that's their profession. So I rarely asked Bashar to ever channel for me or to help me. But he knew that if I was calling for help from Bashar, things were serious. I was suicidal. I was absolutely suicidal. I was pacing beach, and I was afraid to kill myself because I knew the Greys were going to be on the other side to catch me. It was like, what do you do when you have nowhere to go? So Daryl, Bashar came over, and he sat down and he gave me a mantra, and our bodies were touching, and where the energy came out of Daryl's body into mine, it was like I was plugged into an electrical socket.
Was it your knees? When your knees, you sat in front of each other? And
we put two chairs facing each other, and our knees were touching, and we just sat there while Daryl channeled this mantra, and the mantra was keyed to this new vibration level that Bashar took me to. And so he said, I don't know if this is going to help. He goes, it's all I can think to do. And, you may have to do this every day for the rest of your life. And I said, fine, I would do anything to save my life. And so I continued doing the mantra every night for 15 minutes for a week. And it was the first week in years that I hadn't had an experience. And I was just delighted. I was just thrilled. Oh, my God, I'm cured. And so I didn't do the mantra one night, and the grays came right back. So same thing happened. I did the mantra for about three or 4 months, and I thought, oh, I'm cured. I've got to be cured now because they haven't been around for 3 or 4 months. I didn't do the mantra, and a couple nights later, the grays showed up again. So I continued to do that mantra for 5 years, and I never had another experience. So that was the end. We kind of jumped from the very beginning to the very end with everything that happened in the middle, but there was a lot in the middle.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. I can relate to having a hybrid child, and we're just going to go to a little break now. We're going to have some shameless in-house promotions, and when we get back from our little break, we're going to discuss the hybridization of humanity and the hybrid children. I feel it's a very, very important subject to discuss. So, Kim, I would like for you to share at this stage your websites and anything else you would like to share with us and inform the people about what you're doing and where they can get in touch with you. Sure.
Well, my my pride and joy now is it's been coined the quintessential cosmic coffee table book that I worked on for 15 years. And it's beautiful, and it's well priced because I self-published and I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'm basically giving the book away for free, but that's what I want. I just want people to have the book. It's 150 individual stories of close encounters of every kind. And every time you turn the page, it's a new story. And the person who had the encounter sent me the artwork, and the artwork is phenomenal. And it's just, there's nothing like it out there. And so I agree. Yeah,
I agree. We both have one, and it is a fantastic book. It's so well put together, so well created, and yeah.
And people get triggered, like you said. People call me all the time. Oh, I saw that entity. I saw that ship. And so it's very enlightening for a lot of people. And the name of the book is The Art of Close Encounters, and it can be purchased for $35 at theartofcloseencounters.com. And the other thing that I'm doing in life, besides talking all the time, is I'm doing my Sedona UFO Sky Tours, where I take people out with, I have tens of thousands of dollars worth of the highest grade military night vision equipment, and we go out under the stars in Sedona to the UFO hotspots and vortices, and we see UFOs.
You go out for rush hour, do you?
Yes. Yeah. Rush hour is at sunset. So at sunset for a couple hours. Never had an unhappy guest.
I've often said to people, if the veil could just be parted and you could see what is going on out there in other frequencies, you would freak out because it's like rush hour out there.
It is. It is. And, even if you didn't see anything, looking through, I've got pilot's binoculars that are so powerful. Just looking at the stars through night vision changes your life. Even if you didn't see a UFO, but we always see UFOs because they're always there. And half of our sightings are with the naked eye because this is a dark sky city. There are no lights in the neighborhoods, and all the commercial buildings have awnings over their lights, so it keeps the sky very, very dark. Plus, I know the ETs are attracted to Sedona because of it's a chakra, and it's easy to move in and out. So I'm very blessed to be here, and I hope you guys come and visit me soon.
Oh, we would love to do that. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so we'll be back after the short break. Thank you. This music is brought to you by Nedwin Goodall. The track is called The Grand Illusion from the album Tears of the Dragon, available through MG Music.
Welcome to OurJourneyHome.com.au, a place where we are awakening to being free and sovereign.
Who are we? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? And where are we headed? The challenge for me was to take the most complicated concepts of life, the attempt at answering the four primordial questions of life, and write it in the most simplistic way that everybody who reads it can understand it. The time has come for us to once again be free and sovereign. But in order to be free and sovereign, we must first break through the programs and belief systems that control us. The question that you now need to ask yourself is, to what extent am I immersed into these programs and belief systems? I have no doubt that some will find this book challenging, and for others, it will be incredibly liberating. The knowledge contained within this book cracks the code that is enslaving humanity. This book helps you to remember how powerful you are, because it is time to once again be eternal and infinite. It is time to be infinite power, infinite wisdom, and infinite love. This is our universal journey. This music is brought to you by Nedwin Goodall. The track is called Awakening from the Dream, from the album Tears of the Dragon, available through MG Music. Okay, now we're back from our break and welcome back to Superwoo Radio. We're going to get into some really juicy stuff now with Kim. This is batten down the hatches because we're going to get straight into it. off air during the break, we just had this little quick discussion and talking about experiences, and Kim's got a really sprightly little episode to share with us. So, off you go, Kim.
Yeah. So, the whole idea with keeping your vibration high is that it makes you invisible to other forces. And there have only, in the last 15 years since I dropped out, I've had maybe four or five incidences where the Greys tried to come back. And every time I stop them immediately, I can feel them. We're all telepathic. I know they're thinking about me. I can feel their energy, and then I put a stop to it. I'll immediately go into my mantra and raise my vibration again. A couple years ago, when I was losing everything financially, I was very, very depressed. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I look over, and there's a little gray alien laying in the bed beside me. And I immediately rolled over on top of him and strangled him. And he was so surprised. And it was like, no, you are not getting me again. And I grabbed this tiny little neck and I squeezed as hard as I could. And poof, it was like silly putty. If you made a little rod of silly putty and just squeezed it, and I squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until he just disappeared.
Oh, that's a ripper. Oh, amazing. I've had, unfortunately, I've had some really, really good experiences with, I would say midnight interludes, where actually even before Cynthia and I got together, we used to visit each other in spirit form. So we had some very pleasant experiences in that form, in that respect, where we would our light bodies would intertwine and blend and have this incredible experience. So, but I've also had some pretty nasty experiences where I got thrown around my bedroom by draconians and things like that. So I've had quite, wide variety from, experiences, the whole spectrum, I suppose you could say. And the reason we got onto this subject is because, last night we've had quite a few visitors here, and it does happen on the odd occasion. And maybe because of this conversation, Kim, I think they gave us a little bit of extra attention. And so Cynthia's not in a very good way today because she had an entity trying to get into bed with her last night. And I know it's not a nice thing to say or share, but it's part of reality of who and what we are and the things that we do. This is our world, and as crazy and as insane as all this stuff sort of sounds, this is our reality. This is normal for us.
Yes, it is. I'm so glad we can finally find each other. Since I came back, I'm glad I came back. It was an accident, actually, because I went on Facebook 2 years ago, and I joined up as Kim Carsburg, and didn't mention anything about my past, and I thought after 15 years, no one's going to remember me. And immediately I started getting all of these wonderful emails and messages from people, oh my God, you're back, where have you been? You helped me so much. So I got sucked back into it thinking, oh, can I really do this again? And it's been just a joy. The people that I knew 20 years ago, most of them are still in the field and, doing amazing work, and they're like family. I found my family again. So it's great that we can find each other and be as weird as we are together. But I do want to mention you had a mantis experience. Now, I have a mantis experience in my book. I know I had many experiences with the mantis, but and I know people, they love the mantis or they hate the mantis. And I don't get much in between. But I remember when I first started doing television shows back in the 80s and 90s, it was the one thing I held back. I would talk about almost everything except the mantis because I wanted to wait to see if anybody else had an experience with the mantis. And then years later, a dark-haired guy on one of these shows just came out and said, I was standing next to a 9-foot praying mantis. So that was my absolute validation. Yeah. So George, your experience with the mantis?
Yeah. Thanks, Kim, for asking that. It's Yeah, the mantis experiences that I've had are both with the shorter mantis races, which are around 9 foot, and then you've got these beings that are kind of like considered the ancients in the world of extraterrestrials. And to give you an image of what these beings are like, because some of them are around 28 foot tall,
Wow.
they are in the movie The Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which when I saw it just freaked me out at the time, because so much of it was true.
Yes.
Right at the very, very end, the last scene is when all the beings are coming out of the ship, at the craft. At the very end, you've got this really tall, long-limbed, lanky entity or being, which
Yes.
is standing, easily 20 foot tall. That is as close as you'll get to the beings that I'm talking about. And I have a child with those beings, and I've been getting emotional.
It's okay. I know what you're feeling.
And I got taken back to their world twice, and I held this being in my arms. And what was amazing was, it was only 12 months. They told me it was the second time I went it was 12 months old, equivalent to our human lifespan.
Right.
And so I was holding basically a 1-year-old baby. And what was
Right.
amazing, its legs were folded up. So it was about when I hold my arms like you normally hold a baby, with the elbows sort of sticking at 45-degree angles away from you, and you put one hand with another. Um, it was, so you could say the child was probably about nearly a yard, a bit shorter than it, probably about, I'll say in just probably about 2 feet, maybe 2.5 to 3 feet in length, and it had quite a large head on it, and it didn't have really aggressive. These beings don't have sort of like rough, aggressive features. They're smooth-skinned beings, but they got very thin, very lanky limbs, and his arms and his legs were folded underneath him twice. Like the legs were folded twice underneath the length of the body. So I was holding in my arms, and when I went to let him go, his legs unfolded and he stood up and he looked me straight in the face. So he was as tall as I was, after 1 year, being 1 year old in their world, equivalent to our world, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know exactly.
And I don't visit that area within myself. I don't visit those emotions very often, but it is a very, very deep thing, because people don't understand the full scope of the hybrid programs. There is, sure, there's some really nasty and negative agendas that races are conducting here on this planet, but people need to realise that who we are, our genetics are so prized in the universe. We are a fractal of the universe, and these races, we have contracts with these races, and they are using our genetics to better their races, because
Yes.
a lot of them have lost their way. They are so far removed from Universal Creator. They have these telepathic, and energetic and intellectual connections with Universal Consciousness, but they've lost that core heart organic connection, and they need our genetics to find their way back to source, if you want to put it that way.
Well, I know that they need our genetics because that was, 90% of my experiences. And my heart goes out to you because, that's the deepest emotion I've ever felt, is holding my hybrid children and then not being able to hold them. So it's like any human parent-child relationship. It's the deepest bond and love that there is. And all you want to do is to be able to protect them and raise them and spend your life with them. And it's not possible. And, because they're hybrids, it doesn't make any difference. They're still part of you.
And you don't just feel the love for them. Well, I didn't just feel the love for my child as an individual, because that being had so much love and reverence for me.
Right.
Because these races really understand the courage it takes to incarnate here on this planet. especially at this time. And we are held in such high regard. We are just, it's incredible the reverence that these other races have for us. And it is the connection that through this connection that we're having, this genetic connection through that child, you also have the connection to the race, and you have the connection to the love of the race, and the where that race is headed in the universe. It's kind of like the connection goes into such deep levels.
It's infinite, actually.
Yeah.
So, wow, my goodness, where do you go from here?
So
I'll tell you something that I've only shared with a couple of my best friends, and I don't know, but because I'm thinking of sharing it, maybe it's time. Just a few months ago, for the last year, I'll go back 2 years. When I came back into the UFO field, I was terrified that I would be contacted again. Of the negative sorts. But I'm older now, and I know that they're not going to want my DNA for hybridization any longer. So it gave me a little more courage to come back. And when I started focusing on the art of close encounters, you get what you focus on, and they are telepathic. And I knew that I was going to be working on this. I worked on this book 24/7 for 2 years to get it done.
Wow.
And all the time I was working on it, I kept thinking, they know I'm working on it. They're going to come and get me. How can I'm totally focused on aliens. How could they not know it? How could they not come and get me, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't. They left me alone to finish the book.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, well, okay, I'm okay. They're not going to bother me anymore. And then I thought, well, if they're not going to bother me and they don't want my DNA for hybridization, maybe I could contact my children again. So I'm going to start crying now. So for the last year, I've been putting out a telepathic message that I wanted to contact my hybrid children.
Oh, wow.
And I did. And I had the most incredible experience about 2 months ago. It's a very long story, but my son showed up in my living room.
Oh, wow.
A craft came over my house, and I was drawn out into my patio. I look up, and there's this huge craft. I'd never seen one like it before. It looked like at the bottom of an iron that you iron your clothes with.
Yeah.
It came to a point on top. It had arched sides, and it was flat on the back. And it was about the size of my house, and it was a little bit above the treetops. And it was flashing these pastel colors. Wow. And I had a little now I'm a professional photographer, and I buy new gear all the time, and most of the time I don't know how to use all of it, and I keep it locked away in a locked closet. But I had one little camera on my bar in my kitchen that I had given to a boyfriend who gave it back to me. And I had never used it before. So I had it out there because I was going to try to figure out how to use it to, shoot orbs at Bradshaw Ranch or something. And I grabbed the camera and I went out to the patio, and it was an autofocus. And I tried to take a picture of this craft, and I'm trembling. My blood pressure is, through the roof, and I'm nervous and scared and not knowing what's going on. And this camera would not focus because of the flashing pastel lights. Grasp any contrast to lock onto to take the picture.
Right.
So I'm so upset about this, and I was getting this telepathic message from the craft. You better start being prepared to take pictures because we're going to be around. And I thought, oh my God. So I ran back into the house. I tried to get into my professional gear. I grabbed a camera. It's a new one. It's a Canon 5D. It's a video camera, and it's so complicated. I haven't even, I've used it to take some stills with, and that's about it.
Yep.
And I went out, and I couldn't figure out how to do the settings, and I'm trembling, and I'm looking up, and then I just feel, okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw this in. I turn around and I look the other side of the patio as I start to turn around and come back in the house, thinking maybe I can find another camera. And I see a reptilian being. Now, this is my first contact. It wasn't a contact, but it's the first time I'd ever seen a reptilian. And I was always really happy about that fact. I've had contact with at least eight different races, but no reptilian, and don't want to go there, right?
Yep.
So I see this reptilian falling. It had to be falling through dimensions because it was like it was falling on its back above my house, falling out of the sky, and it's frailing, its arms and its legs and its tail they're going everywhere. And I had the essence or the idea that it had been like shot out of space. And it was falling, and before it hit my patio, it disappeared again. And now I'm thinking, what is going on? I turn around, and there's a half a dozen craft over my house.
Wow.
And for some reason, I ran back in the house. I didn't know what to do. I look over, and my hybrid son is sitting on my sofa.
Oh.
And he was about 35 years old. Caucasian, medium brown hair, wearing normal clothes, just very, very normal, but it was all telepathic. And I walked over to the couch. I sat down. I put my hand on his knee, and he had something of great concern on his mind. And I could tell he was communicating with other beings. His consciousness was split. He was trying to communicate with me and these other beings, and he was very, very concerned about something. And I thought, oh my God, that reptilian was trying to stop our contact.
Wow.
And I did something about it. And so I sat there for a few minutes, and then he turned around and he looked at me, and telepathically he said, Mom, what do you plan to do with the rest of your life? And I was, whoa. That's my 20 years, or how many years it's been. And I started to think my automatic thoughts. And lately I have been not depressed, but a little bit down, thinking, I have done everything there is to do in life. I've done way more than I ever expected to do in my life. I accomplished all of my goals and then some. I've been to other planets. I mean, hello, what is left for me to do? So that's my question, to myself over the last few. What's the next big goal for me? And I haven't been able to put my finger on it. I just do what I can every day to share the information. And so when I started thinking these thoughts, or this thought, well, I've already done everything, his thought joined my thought. And it didn't overwhelm me or my thought, but it's like it just joined up with it, and he guided my thinking very gently in another direction. And he said, Mom, every minute of every day, around every corner, there is a new opportunity to be of service. A new opportunity of service.
Wow.
And then there was a break in my consciousness, and he was gone.
Wow.
So my hybrid children are communicating with me all the time now. My daughter, April, the one that has been my heartache for my entire life, contacted me to tell me that I'm now a grandmother.
Wow.
And physically gave birth to twins.
Physically, as we humans do here on Earth.
Do. And I asked my son about having children, and he said they were trying to create children for him, but their old-fashioned way, which is through the hybridization process. The last time I talked to him, I said, how's it going with the children, the hybrid children? He said, I'm sorry, Mom, but they expired. So it's still a challenge, for them to reproduce and create families, but this is a whole new episode of my life, and it's got to be for a reason.
Oh, Kim, we are so eternally grateful, because this really helps people to understand when they feel into your words and they feel the way you're expressing the way you're expressing yourself. You're expressing it for me too, for so many who have been experiencing these and are too fearful to come forward and speak out and keep it like a secret, or they've buried it deep and try and live in denial of it. It means so much for people to hear this. Wow.
Yeah, so they're healthy, happy, intelligent, funny.
Mm.
They got all of the human aspects that are so wonderful, and yet they are 1,000 times more intelligent. So I have to tell you, I am one proud mother.
Oh, that's just fantastic news. And I know there's other children that I have that I'm not aware of consciously because I've been sort of like milked for my sperm for a long time, and I just don't have a clue really how many children I could be the father of. I suppose it's a bit of a weird sort of feeling, and you know, it's you just got to accept it and you got to deal with it and live with it. And yeah, there's an aspect to the hybridization programs which are just magnificent and helping so many races. And I hope people can understand that it's not all dark, it's not all negative. There is a very beautiful side to this, and it's helping so many on many levels, and it's including us. It's always symbiotic, everything that takes place, and these hybridization programs are helping humanity because in so many ways, and I can only speak of a few that I can think of, but there's so many more that I can't consciously come up with, and the ones that we have this deep relationship with so many races out there, that we are connected to them, that we are not only energetically connected to them, not only are we the incarnations of these races, because a lot of these races have their peoples incarnated on Earth. And that's another reason why there's a lot of hybridization programs going on, because we are them. And
Yes.
Isn't that right, Kim?
Yes, we are them. That's the greatest spiritual gift they gave me. One day they looked into my eyes and said, "You are us." And I knew myself to be everything, everywhere. I was God. I was an ant. I was every ET. I was every human. I was every animal. I was everything, and it was phenomenal. And I knew it to be true. It was the truth. So they took a lot from me, and they gave me a lot back.
Yeah, and I've been saying so often that there are negative ET races out there. Yes, they have their negative agenda. Yes, we are mostly exposed to their agendas and have been for a long time. But there's also a lot of ET races. Well, the majority of life are connected to the organic universe. They don't come from these synthetic paradigms that I speak of. They come from organic paradigms, and they are our families.
You know Clifford Stone, right? Clifford Stone?
I've heard of Clifford Stone. He's an ex-military gentleman.
Right. And, he claims that he was on the first responders team for the military for UFO crashes. And he said after his, I don't know if it was 22, 27 years, something like that, in the military, when he left, that they had categorized 57 different species of ETs. And he said that most of them, like 90% of them, were carbon-based. A few of them were silicone-based. And he said, but we had emergency kits for every race and the kinds of medicines that were appropriate for the different races. I don't know where they got this information and the medicines, but he said that something as simple as hydrogen peroxide, which we would put on our bodies if we were cut, could instantly kill one of these other ET races. So he said it was a very tricky business. And he said that, he was, it was some kind of interview with Stephen Greer. It was the National Press Conference, I believe, or something like that, many years ago. And he said that the question that baffled the scientific community was every one of these species were bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, 2 ears, stood erect. So in my thinking, and they said it can't be, if we've got species coming from other planets, then, they've got to look different, they've got to be an octopus or something like that. It's like Men in Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that just absolutely confirmed for me that the ETs that are coming here are us. They have to be our family. We're all the same. The skin's a little different. It's just like the races here. But we're basically the same genetic being.
Yeah, it's the bipedal being that is the one that was chosen. It's this format, this structure, which was chosen to be the best suitable for containing the energetic patterns and the genetic patterns for universal consciousness. And so all these races for a long time have been working towards humanizing their race, believe it or not, and whilst in the hybridization programs they do want to keep and maintain aspects of their races, and there are many that have even gone to the point where they totally replicated the humanoid form, so they appear to us as humans. But the Earth human form is the one that these races out there are aspiring to, and then there's other races, of course, who are jealous and have other agendas of who and what we are and what they want to do with us, and are taking our genetics for other purposes, for accessing more life force, because they want to become more powerful as a race. So there's other agendas at play, but the larger agenda at play, like the overall picture, is yes, we are on this planet. We're all extraterrestrial. We've all come from out there. We've all incarnated here. We're all ETs, and it's about remembering our families, and also understanding that we are beyond that as well. We are universal consciousness, and we are even beyond this universe.
Well put.
George, can I ask you a quick question? A lot of other speakers will talk about how the humans are the fleas on the dog of a back, or this planet has been put out in the boondocks so it doesn't contaminate other areas of the universe. And both you and Kim are talking about how they're trying to be like us. So it's actually the other way. Can you talk a bit about that?
It is. It is the other way. There's only a few that see it in the way that you just said it then. It is a minority, and it's kind of like a minority that has a bit of a loud voice. They're the ones that have kind of, in some most vibrational levels, they've tried to quarantine this planet and stop other ETs accessing us because they want to control us and implement their agendas. So, Kim and myself, we've still been able to have access from our families because they can override their quarantine measures. So we are held in the highest of regard, and these other comments are coming from other ET races that have a more negative agenda and are threatened by who and what we are, and feel the need to put us down. And it is a systematic program being disseminated on the planet that we are the lowest of the lows, that we're at the bowels, we're scraping the bowels of the universe, that we are lowly humans, and that we are pathetic sinners, lowly sinners, and all that sort of garbage, and that we're in the lowest frequency. Our density is not because we're in the lowest frequency. Our density has to do with compression, because we're bringing everything back to 0 point. We're bringing everything back into harmony and balance, all our creations. And these other ET races out there know who we are, because we are them. They're our families, and they hold us in the highest of regard because we are the way showers.
So, George, what happens when we come back into balance? We just have to go back out of balance again to have another game to play.
The aspect of us that's coming back into balance is achieving the mastery of the expression of the universe, which is light. And that way you can go about being a creator of an entire universe. So at the moment, we're just creators of very large either planetary systems or star systems or galactic systems, or I'd say pseudo-universal paradigms within this universe. But after this process, we get to actually create our own universe outside of this universe using the construct of light. So we end up mastering it. And we are not only just ET races out there, we're also planets, we're also stars, and we're also galactic paradigms. We are these creations because we co-created along the way in our journey.
Right. Well, I have a different opinion about them trying to be like us. Perhaps we're trying to be like each other. When I look at these hybrid children, I see that they have taken the best of both races and combined it into perfection. So, we want to evolve. So we're evolving through these hybrid children. They want to evolve. They're evolving by merging with us. So perhaps it's neutral. We're working together, not one over the other or one under the other.
Oh, it's not about being better. We are them. We're not better than them. It's just that we've incarnated from out there into this human vessel, which is a fractal of the universe. And out there, all of us out there as ETs and what have you, we're on a universal journey. We're in this universe to experience this universe, and we are completing this journey. And to come here at this time in Earth human form is the last stages of that journey. And we are considered elders amongst our races. The meetings that I've had with so many councils and races out there, it's kind of like everybody out there is preparing for what's about to happen here now on Earth, because the main point of focus is planet Earth in the universe. It's the jewel of what's happening in the universe. It's brand new what's going on here, and everybody's focus and intention is right here, right now. And so many races are scrambling to, because their time is limited. There's a intensity of it all happening, because soon they're going to lose access to us and the way we are because of the metamorphosis that's taking place here.
In my last conversation with my hybrid son, he said that he was parked somewhere above, a star system observing Earth because of the probability of an asteroid hitting in 2013. And but then he went on to say, but all of this is contingent on the splitting of the timelines. So, I'm looking at how do we even comprehend infinity and timelines? And, because all I know for a fact in my life is I see the power of mass consciousness. And if we are moving in one direction, then some of us have to be moving in another direction. So all of these things exist.
Yeah.
So, which road will we be on?
Well, it depends which, for me, it's an individual thing. I came to incarnate on this earth. I'm having a very deep and intimate relationship with my Earth Mother and my Father Son, because I'm inside their bodies. I'm immersed in their bodies, and it's also to understand the intention of the planetary consciousness. So who is she, and what's her intentions, and we're having a symbiotic relationship with her. And she's changing, and I know I'm changing, and we're changing symbiotically. And, I came here to achieve a particular outcome, and Mother Earth is facilitating humanity to achieve a particular outcome. So she's carrying us in her womb. And this splitting of the timelines is absolutely true, because it's quite a big subject, the splitting of the timelines, because I'm going to stay with my Earth Mother, and I'm going to birth through what, metaphorically through the womb of the mother on a universal scale.
And I've made the same commitment. So many people say, well, when the time comes, will you get on a ship? Will you go through a Stargate? I said, no, this is my home. This is where I want to be. I am so deeply connected to this planet. And, my experiences, not an abduction went by that I wasn't told. And here's my favorite quote. I've said it a million times. An ET stood in front of me and said, "It is now time to save Mother Earth from her inhabitants. It's time to start repairing the damage we have done." And I've been quoting this for 20 years. And it wasn't until this year that I was speaking at a UFO conference that I realized what I was saying. I had always taken that to mean that we were the bad guys, that we had destroyed Mother Earth and it was our responsibility. But they said, it is time for us to repair the damage we have done. So they're taking responsibility for the planet as well.
Yeah.
I had an experience right before that. They used to put me through these virtual reality scenarios to teach me lessons. And I would wake up and I would be, being chased by an elephant or something that was absolutely real. And they were, measuring my fear and my physical abilities and my telepathic abilities. I was tested and tested and tested. And one day I woke up into this experience where I was in a prison, and I was an inmate in a female prison. And it was absolutely real. I was terrified. A woman runs up to me, another inmate, and grabs me and said, "Come on, we're out of here." And, not knowing what to do, I followed this woman thinking, okay, I'm going to escape this, whatever this is. We walk around a corner, and there was a guard there that she didn't expect. And she grabbed the woman's head and cracked her neck and killed her right there in front of me.
Wow.
And it was horrific that I just fell to the floor and I covered my head. I turned my head away. I couldn't look at, this horrible event. And as soon as I did, I was out of the scenario, and I was in a room full of grays, and they were looking at me. And that's when they said, if a horrible act is taking place and you turn your head in denial, you are equally as responsible as the culprit. And that's when they stood in front of me and said, it is now time to save Mother Earth from her inhabitants.
Amazing.
So they embed these experiences into my cellular memory so deeply that I will never forget it. It runs my life.
That's how they communicate, isn't it? They do use. So often I say to Cynthia, I just had another manipulated dream state. But when I say that, I mean some dreams are manipulated, but others are holographic experiences of communication.
Right. So they love the Earth as much as we do.
They do. I had another ancient family member come to me. It was another grey race. It was the first. It was the root grey race, who were once kind of a humanoid form on their planet. And they came to me and said, don't choose the path of technology, because at that time in my life I was really getting into technology big time, and it was starting to consume me. I was in a really big way, and they warned me. They said, "Look at me, look at my body." And he's a little 3.5 foot grey guy,
right.
and I knew him as a family, galactic family friend, cosmic family friend, and he said, "Do you want to turn out to look like me?" And he says, "If you choose a path of technology, okay, you have good intentions, but eventually technology can do everything for you, and you will end up looking like me. Don't go down that path. You did it once before. Don't do it again." And that shocked me in that moment.
Right. Well, we don't have to end up being grays to see the detriment of the kind of lives we're living. Most of us are overweight from sitting in front of our computers and sitting in our cars, and
Yep.
we're not a healthy race already. So, yeah.
And so it's important to understand the types of technologies and what they can actually do. And if we can get back to our organic connection to the earth, because these technologies are cutting us off from our natural abilities, and those abilities are atrophying, and that's why it's important. Well, Kim, I also wanted to ask you, this is just branching off a little bit, but when you were a child in your abductions, do you ever remember them coming through the wardrobe or the closet?
Yeah.
Isn't
That's how they come.
Isn't that weird?
It is. They always come to the closet. I most people, when they go to bed at night, they go and they lock all their doors. I go and close all the closet doors.
Same. I can't. I just cannot sleep if a closet door, or what we call them wardrobes, door is open.
Even 1 inch, I can't sleep. It's got to be as secure as it can be. Yeah.
Oh, crikey.
Right? So look at the symbology of that coming out of the closet.
It's the doorway. That freaks me out. That's so cool. Yeah. And I'm getting the feeling that the energy's starting to wind up here. I did want to get into a whole lot of other subjects, but I'm actually going to honour the flow of energy and the way our our families are making us feel at the moment, because we've all got this really incredible connection going on. I wanted to ask you, you've got an upcoming book and it's called Cirrus Speaks. Can you tell me what that's about?
Okay, that is basically a telepathic communication from Sirius. It's on the back burner though, because I'm working on a new book called Facing Disclosure, and it's actually, I'm going around the world and I'm photographing all the major players in the disclosure movement, like you. And
awesome, you just nailed it. You know why? Because that's the web link that has the really strange problem. When you click on your website link, it takes you to some sort of page and it says disclosure.con, which is C-O-N instead of C-O-M. So it's got the name of your title of your book, and it took me to this other page. So they've hacked into your link there.
I've been hacked, and my phones have been tapped, and I'm abducted by the military. I mean, nothing surprises me anymore, ever.
Oh, when these things happen, I always say we must be doing something right.
Exactly. Yeah. So Facing Disclosure is going to be a duplicate of the Art of Close Encounters. It's going to be every time you turn the page, it's a different ufologist, and each person gets one page, 500 words to say what's really going on. So I think I'm about 75% there.
Wow, that's going to be fantastic when that comes out. Really, really looking forward to that, Kim. All right. Jason, is there anything else you'd like to add at this stage?
No, I'd just like to thank both of you. I've been sitting in the back here listening. There's been such a great connection between you two, and I didn't want to interrupt that flow. A lot of people probably wanted me to ask mechanical questions on how do they milk your sperm and what happened to Kim during all the abductions and all the gory stuff and the mechanical stuff, but that's already out there. There's other programs that have discussed all those matters, and I thought it was important to just go with the connection that happened today. I felt it. I know the audience is going to feel it, and I just want to thank you both so much. You've really opened up with some of the most personal and emotional stories that anyone could ever share. The hybrid children stories are just amazing, and yeah, it's such an honour to be here and hearing it live. I thank you both. And I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I do. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, George.
Thank you, too. And let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I truly, truly appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your life and having the courage to be Kim Carsburg. Thank you.
Thank you, George. God bless you.
For information on upcoming episodes, go to superwooradio.com.au. A big thank you goes to all our crew behind the scenes who help make Superwoo Radio possible. And of course, we want to thank you for choosing to listen to Superwoo Radio. As we say, from a much greater perspective, it was a choice that you were always going to make. So until next time, let go, flow in your river of life, and simply be.